So I guess I'll continue the story of storytelling, but thinking more about the medium of storytelling. I'll be talking about two documentary films. One is called Lesbian Factory, shot in 2004, and its sequel, Rainbow Popcorn, in 2011. They were both made by filmmaker Su Xiangchen and TIWA, Taiwan International Workers Association. And Su Xiangchen was once a journalist and then became involved in labor activism and attended some workshops in filmmaking, started to make documentaries. And she was involved with TIWA. And Lesbian Factory was actually a documentary of a labor protest and struggle against Ministry of Labor in Taiwan. And in 2004, it was a time when China opened its door for all the manufacturers with its cheap labor and cheap land. And as a result, many factories closed its business in Taiwan. And a lot of workers faced unemployment, and among them, the most vulnerable ones were the migrant workers, because they would not get their salaries and the law did not protect them as local labor. And also, if they did not transition to another factory ASAP, they would face deportation. And it was under such circumstance, a electronic factory called Fast Fame closed its business in Taiwan, and about 125 migrant workers, mostly female Filipino workers, were facing deportation at the time. And they found TIWA, Taiwan International Workers Association, and asking them for help for negotiation and mediating between the government because of also the language barrier that these workers faced. And when I heard about this film, well, usually I think about documentary on social protest, like this image, also a screenshot I got from Lesbian Factory. It is a lot of footage on site about demonstration and thinking a lot of things more like maybe about the protest itself. But Lesbian Factory is actually different. It is a lot about the collective intimacy between the filmmaker and TIWA and also the workers, and which led to Rainbow Popcorn, a sequel after 7 years when TIWA and the filmmaker went to Dubai and the Philippines to revisit the protagonists and see what they were doing. Well, some of them went to Dubai, continued their life as migrant workers, and some of them went back to home, the Philippines. And those are the two posters of these films. And I will think a lot about filmmaking and organizing as process and in terms of temporality and intimacy building. TIWA and Su Xiangchen started the film as documenting their process as this event. But when they were documenting also probably more like B-rolls for them at that time about the workers hanging out, they found a lot of romantic relationships among them. And they started asking like questions more like gossip and nosy ones, like how you guys fell in love with each other, how you guys met, how everything happened, to like very nosy ones. Like, you guys live in a collective dorm. How do you guys have sex? How do you guys manage that noise? And the screenshots I got were about those questions. They were laughing because it was a bit embarrassed, but also shy. And it is that strategy, almost like a deviation from their intention, shows that filmmaking and organizing is this process of getting close to each other. And it is with that process, a lot of intimate footage appeared, and it was this emotional there-ness. It is about those people and not as much about the audience like other documentaries. And it is also because of those questions and responses, we see another side of labor protests and labor struggles. It is also how they were hanging out together and how they had that bond while they were facing a lot of uncertainty and intense moments. Well, in Rainbow Popcorn, the filmmaker Su Xiangchen talks about the Q&A and screenings of Lesbian Factory, and she says in the voiceover saying that almost after every screening there would be an audience asking, oh, do you think they became lesbian because they were far away from home and living in dormitory, same-sex dorm? And she would always answer with like a counterexample of Alice, a worker who is very, very private, and saying that they could remain their privacy even though living together. But I'm still gonna start with the dorm. Because I think it's such an interesting place to think about the proximity, and also in Lesbian Factory, most of the fun and hanging out, the group works took place in dorms, as we can probably imagine. Highlighting the proximity among workers and between Tiwa and the Filipino workers, the film takes place in the factory dormitory. A compulsory space about collectivity, privacy, and joy. These seemingly contradictory adjectives, fun and compulsory, collective and private, are archetypes of the analysis of queer and migrant dwellings, as they are the result of negotiation and adaptation. The embodied closeness is not a choice, but inevitably fosters intimacy and queer desire among them. In the interviews Tiwa conducted, many couples said that they fell in love as they worked together. And for a few cases, one partner had never had a lesbian relationship before. Their boyfriends could not visit Taiwan because of SARS or have broken up with them because of long distance. In the interviews, Pilar and Elsa, for example, both described that they had a hard time accepting or reciprocating their partner's affection because they had never imagined being in a same-sex relationship. But again, they eventually give in because of love. Elsa tells Tiwa that sometimes you just have to become open-minded to your life, to your future. What comes to your life, you just become open. Compared to the romanticization of free love, these queer desires needed conditions for it to emerge. The condition, however, is not only the spatial condition of dorm, that formally and even functionally resemble a prison cell maybe, but also the mindset of migrant workers, the willingness to go with the flow and unexpected changes. Elsa's description of willingness is not only an optimistic way of life, but an exercise subjectivity of migrant labor. It is the closeness of the body, the confinement of space, and the openness to life together that have given rise to these unforeseen lesbian intimacies. And naturally, as their living space and condition changed, these relationships took on new paths, and these people had to again be open to their lives and futures. While I see the specific context and concrete space of dormitory essential to the formulation of same-sex desires and relationships here, openness is what queers their relationship and continues their relationality after the relationship had fallen apart. Such openness to life and unexpected futures shared by these migrant workers paints the undertone of these two films, the mix of joy and loss. While Lesbian Factory documents the process of their labor protest, and Popcorn Rainbow focuses on the aftermath of their failed relationships, laughter persists throughout these two films. The space that hosts laughter is the dormitory, and inspired by Elsef Probin's The Spatial Imperative of Subjectivity, I think about how dormitory produces the laughter. After all, it is the space that migrant workers return after a full day of work. This is a place for rest and relaxation. Probably no one wants more trouble and tiresome after a tedious and repetitive day. The hanging clothes in front of the dormitory door and their beds mark the boundary between work and personal space, from producing with one's body to a space that maintains and cares for one's body. Laughter constitutes the space even as they face the possibilities of separation, deportation, and other changes. And as Tiwa workers and the camera entered the dormitory space with the workers, they also became a part of that dormitory fun. And it is actually,
Yes.
Oh, sorry. No, I want to show a clip, but I guess it worked on, sorry, I guess it worked on Google Slides, but not here. I wanted to show a clip of, I won't then. Oh, sorry. The remote is not working. No. Sorry, but yes, but since I opened this, it seems it's not working.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to show a scene of the passing of a camera. It is from that very scene, it's less than 1 minute, I started to think about how filmmaking here actually give rise to the usually theorized as the formless queer relationality. It is a scene when the workers were trying to pay, well, they were not supposed to pay, but they paid as for their gratitude to the Tiwa workers saying for thank you. It's a box and it's a lot of coins, you could just hear that, and they were joking around. And as the filmmaker had to receive the box, she transferred the camera to someone else. It is that transferring of camera I thought about relationality. And that scene has no visual content in that way. And it is that, and it was not supposed to have that handheld independent film aesthetics. It is very much that anti-aesthetics that give rise to that formless relationality and the concept of intimacy. And also, the act of passing of the camera is not usually seen in both documentary and fictional films because cameras are supposed to be absent so that the audience could believe in this immersive and realistic world. But it is this very much acknowledgement of the camera makes this film different in terms of thinking about the relationality and organizing. And, sorry. Time's up. I guess I'll go to the last slide and think about who are those films for. As the camera is present and we know that the camera is there, then who are these cameras for? Who are these films for? And in the Popcorn Rainbow, it becomes pretty obvious it's not for us. It's not for, like what Trimming Hop always says, documentary is for people out there, for the people in here, but it's different in this case. Well, there were 2 screenings of Lesbian Factory in Rainbow Popcorn. The first one is to someone's new girlfriend. Then that person, as someone intimate to the two-year, could watch that experience to know about her. It feels almost like a family or friendship footage. And then there was also a screening for Ellen, who was Elsa's girlfriend, but they broke up after Elsa decided to enter a heterosexual marriage. And Ellen watched, and we could see that the bureau cutting in Rainbow Popcorn is not just Lesbian Factory, but a TV screen screening Lesbian Factory. And it is that very scene of screening felt differently. It was not for the audience to have any emotional loss with Ellen, but it's about Ellen's screening experience. And the filmmaker then jumped in front of the camera, asking Ellen how she feels about this relationship and what they ended up here. And openness again comes up, sorry, I'm time up, comes up again in this response. So it's a very much not only a B-roll, but reflexive moment for the workers to jump across temporality, to think, to recall, and also to think about what they have right now. And I will end this presentation with a quote from Tiwa's website, translates to, as queers and migrant workers, their situations are always changing, like migratory birds that never land. Perhaps because of this, so we can never keep up with the speed of their fickle love and cross-border migration. And I think it is such speed of their life and love and migration makes filmmaking a very interesting medium to think in relation to organizing. Film as a medium, as a temporal medium, not only allows these workers to go back in temporality, but also extends the relationality between the organizing workers and the migrant workers here. Thank you.